but what is your ideal scenario? Like if you could wave your magic wand, what would you love to see happen with your body and weight and food?
Yeah, I mean, I just had my second son in February, and so I held on to a lot of that kind of postpartum weight for a while, and I recently lost like 15 pounds, which feels great. I'm like back into my heavy pants, but I have like a large amount of clothes that I can't fit into. So I would love to be able to fit into a lot of my favorite clothes that I have. And then more than just fitting into my clothes, because I know clothes are replaceable. I want to feel good and confident in my body, and I want to get to a place where I can enjoy like the sweet things in life without feeling like it triggers me into like wanting to eat all of the sweet things in life. And so just getting to a place where I feel like confident in my body, I can enjoy things with, limits that are, without having to like worry so much about it, and just find a place where I'm kind of like happy and stable
Love it.
with my weight without going up and down too much.
Yeah, okay, cool. So this is perfect. So whenever I'm working with clients, I always want to focus on the food stuff before the weight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I found that when we clear up all the food stuff, it creates a lot of what we want to happen with the weight stuff anyway, but it just feels like this huge thing off your plate, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now I don't overeat, I don't emotionally eat, like that's not happening anymore. So if for some reason the weight wasn't already coming off just because of that, it feels like so much more doable because it's like, okay, phew, I can just eat normal. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would focus on. And like I said, for most people, when we deal with the food stuff, the weight stuff just kind of takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't, then we go down that next rabbit hole together.
Yeah.
So with the emotional eating, is it, you mentioned sweets as a trigger, and that trigger is happening when you start eating sweets only, or is it like when you see sweets, or is it like what are the triggers when it comes to over consuming sweet food?
Yeah, so I think part of that is stress. Like I know last week was really stressful, and
You
I
and
was
everyone else, yes.
definitely eating a lot. Um, you
Hold on,
know,
I'm gonna pause you there. Can you
okay.
think of a time last week when you felt triggered by stress to eat sweets that we can walk through? A specific.
I think I have a better example that's actually like a deeper trigger, which is more about the scale.
Okay.
So like, cause I had been really good. I'd cut most sugar out. And I had lost a bunch of weight. And then, so I like see the scale going down, and then I'm like, oh, it was my husband's birthday. So I made a birthday cake. So I had a little piece of cake, and I'm like, okay, I'm still losing weight. Okay. I did okay with a piece of cake. And then it's like, it was my birthday. So I had some treats, and then it's like, okay, now I'm still losing weight. Oh, I'm going to have a chai tea. Okay. I had a chai today, like, with some sugar in it. I'm still losing weight. Now let me have chai and sweet. And so it's like, I get in this game where it's like, I see how much sweet stuff I can have while still losing weight. And then that like sets me off. And then I like get really down on myself. And then I think that triggers me to just be like, fuck it. I'm
Okay,
going to eat
y'all.
sweet.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to do intermittent fasting. So then at like noon, I'd be like super hungry, and I'd like eat everything in sight. Like last week, I had like 1.5 peanut butter jelly sandwiches for lunch because I was so hungry. And I was like, I'm just like,
Yeah,
like not healthy,
absolutely.
but I'm like, I want sugar. And I'm like, anyway.
Okay, cool. So this is, by the way, very normal.
Okay.
So, especially the scale thing, and the testing it. So it's like, what can I get away with and still get what I want, right? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, so there's a difference between um, like wanting something and like wanting to want something. So what I mean is like people will tell me, I don't want I don't want sugar. They'll tell me, I don't want sugar. It doesn't make me feel good. I eat too much of it. And I'm like, well, you do want sugar. You just don't want to want sugar.
Yeah.
There's a
Exactly.
big difference between the two.
Yeah.
So you're like at the point where you're using like diets and different techniques to try to force yourself to want sugar, but the reality is you want it, and so we have to deal with reality
Right.
and start there. So then it goes back to, what are you getting from sugar? What do you love about it? What happens when your brain says go get some sugar?
Yeah, I think I get like an energy rush. And I also like if I eat something that's rich enough, I get like a brain tingle. And so that's what, like, and so I think there is some sort of, rush that I
Now,
get from it. But
if there was no weight gain, like you were magic and you could eat 17 chocolate cakes and be fine, would that be good? Like you'd be like, cool, I didn't gain weight from it, then I'm good with eating sugar. Or is there anything else that would cause you to not want to eat it?
um I mean, I feel like it doesn't contribute to stable energy throughout the day, right? So I know that if I have it, then I crash and then I want more of it, right? So I understand that it's not healthy. And I also understand that I do go to it to comfort me
Yeah.
sometimes. And I know that that's also not healthy. So, like, if I did all of those things and I didn't lose weight, would it be, or if I didn't gain weight, would it be such a big issue? Maybe not. But I think that I care enough about my health and wellness that I would care.
Okay, so
Yeah.
here's what I'm going to recommend. So, and by the way, because we just met for everybody who's watching, so Tara doesn't know much about me or my
I
approach.
know nothing about you.
No, nothing. Oh, there you go. So everything I do is pretty unconventional. So you're just gonna have
Okay.
to trust me here, because it's
Okay.
gonna be probably counter to everything you've ever heard. But when we are hyper focused on a food, you're right. Yes, sugar does things great. Like there's triggers in the brain, things like that, that makes people believe it's addictive or makes people believe, oh, it's like my brain wants it, and it's like that high, that rush is why I keep wanting it. But I don't necessarily subscribe to all of that. And I also believe that like mindfulness trumps all anyway. So what I would recommend you do is you're gonna plan to eat your sugar. So what that means is if you don't have any in the house, go to the store and buy all the sweet things that you think about all the time. All of them. Don't just buy one, because this won't
Okay.
work if you're feeling restricted or deprived at all. So when I did this with potato chips, for example, it wouldn't have worked for me to buy one bag of potato chips, because if I allowed myself, I would binge on the entire bag and then it would be gone and I would feel deprived again. So when I did this, I had to buy like 3 or 4 bags of potato chips, not because I was actually going to eat them all, but because I needed to know there was more. I couldn't,
Right.
if there was only one, I knew when that bag was empty, there were no more. And that made me feel deprived. And when you're in this cycle with the food, this very irrational place, it's coming from deprivation and restriction. So we
Okay.
have to feel like it's in abundance. Like,
Okay.
don't tell yourself, this is a one-time thing. This is the only time you can do this. Eat it all now because you're never going to have it again. Like, all of that
Right.
language
That's
has
what
to go.
yeah.
The language in your head has to be, Tara, you can eat this as much as you want. You can have this every meal if you want it. Like, you are a grown ass woman, and if you want it, you can have it. So that's the language that has to be occurring in your head, so that your brain calms down and stops acting like it's on an island and it's never going to get it ever again, because that's where that illogical stuff's coming from.
Okay.
So you buy all the food, all the sweet things, and like plan it. So with breakfast, if you're eating, I don't know, eggs and toast, put your sweet thing on the plate with your breakfast. And you can do this every meal. You can do it snacks. It doesn't matter. It's not off limits at all. But the caveat to all of it, the only way this works is if you actually sit and enjoy the food. So especially those sweet things, your brain has to feel the full eating experience if it's going to actually feel satisfied and full from that food, especially ones we feel deprived of. So you're going to sit down with your sweet things that you love. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to take a few deep breaths. You're going to eat a bite. You're going to taste everything about it, every ingredient. Take deep breaths as you're chewing. Like, you love sweet things. You need to make it like the most enjoyable experience of your life, and do that. You have enough of those enjoyable experiences, your brain will get satisfied. So that's this first step. And then the second step is, once you've gotten through the deprivation, which doesn't take very long, usually a couple days, where you're more rational around it, then when you are in the habit of wanting to eat it for energy, you just pause and you say, I can have it. I'm feeling low energy. I can go have something sweet. It will bump up my energy temporarily. I will have a crash afterwards. And do I want that crash? Not, do I want the sweet thing for pleasure? Not, do I want the immediate energy burst? Do I want the crash? Because that's the actual end of that loop, right?
Right.
We kind of lie to ourselves like, oh, but it's this, and we pretend the other parts aren't part of it, but they are. So that's not where we start though, right? Because when you're in deprivation, you're rational. So there's no point of trying to have a logical conversation about it in your own head.
Yeah.
So that has to calm down first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So that's your sugar exercise. Most likely what will happen is as you become more present with your sweet things, things are going to start to taste too sweet for you. It's going to start to be less pleasurable, except for the ones that are truly joyful from an ingredient perspective. In other words, like I subscribe that like fast food and really low quality foods that people say are addictive because they trigger certain chemicals in the brain, like that can only happen if you're not present, right? Like if you're present, you can't get over how disgusting a really shitty piece of food is. Like if you try to eat like, you know, something really low quality, like not in the car driving, like set the table, play the music and open your like paper McDonald's hamburger. And it just doesn't taste the same because you're so present with it. Like you can't bypass chemical engineering of it anymore. So that's the difference that will happen when you start to become more present when you eat, is like, oh, I don't even know if I like this. Like I've had people tell me, I had this one client that loved those little powdered donuts, like, you know, the package. And I was like, that's awesome. That's great. I love that you love those. So what you're going to do is eat them every day. Not that you have to, but you can. But when you eat them, I want you to sit down to the thing I just told you, sit down, enjoy it, breathe. And she ate the first one and then she called me. She's like, it literally tastes like wax. I'm like, well, it's always tasted like wax.
Like wax.
You just didn't know it. So you're going to start to notice things. So every single one of my clients tells me, wow, things I thought I liked, I don't like. You know, like healthy foods that I didn't know I liked, I really like. Like all these things start shifting in your flavor profiles when you're actually allowing your body to be part of the experience. When you have enough eating experiences, your brain stops hyper-focusing on food. So we don't just feed our bellies, we also feed our heads. Our head needs like joy and presence and nourishment and satisfaction, the things that we get from food. The reason we don't just take food pills, right? The eating experience is an important part of your day. They have to actually happen. They have to be like processed by your brain. Like I sat down and I ate breakfast, I tasted it and I enjoyed it, and then it can move on. If you don't, then it's like, did we eat? And your body's like, yeah, we ate, I'm full. Your brain's like, well, where was that? I don't remember eating. So we have to involve both of those things. Okay. So that's your sugar assignment. Emotional eating, is that separate from this or is that the same?
I feel like, I mean, I feel like yes and no. I don't know. I feel like that will probably, I think that'll work for most of it. Yeah. I mean, there might be.
You're right. So what's happening, I call it mind. So I kind of call it mind hunger. So mind hunger is anytime you're triggered to eat for some reason other than hunger. So we have physical hunger, belly growling, right? Yeah. So mind hunger is like, I saw a food and now I want to eat it. Or my husband's eating and now I want to eat it. Or my child's eating a food and I don't even like that food, but I need to eat it now. So like that's called external eating. That's the trigger of external eating. And then we have emotional eating, which is I eat because I'm sad, I eat because I'm happy, I eat what, like all those trigger food wanting to eat. And then there's restrained eating, which is when you eat because you're feeling deprived, right? So the brain is starved for eating experiences and for joy and pleasure from food, which is most often where all my clients start out. Not 100% of the time, because they're coming off of a diet every time. So that out of control feeling we have with food is because our mind is asking to eat all the time because of those three instances of those different triggers. So you're right. As soon as we start having actual eating experiences, everything calms down and the mind stops asking for food. So you're back to just physical hunger, which is usually fixes the problem for everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's actually the easiest one. So when I work with my clients, it's a 15-day process to eliminate all those mind hunger things.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, they are usually seeing results within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So effective once you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's awesome.
Cool.
So that's that. And then
Okay.
in terms of let me rephrase that differently. If all that mind hunger was gone and you were only eating when you were hungry and stopping when you were full, what else would get in the way of your success in your perception of just weight stuff in general, weight or food?
So if I was only eating when I was hungry, so the other thing I've been working on, which ties into this, is not overeating and eating slower, or just eating like, I think it helps to just, I've been trying to like not put as much food on my plate, because then it kind of stops me from having so much to eat. But otherwise, I know I eat too fast and then I eat too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to, it's hard as a mom, because I'm like trying to eat um, in
Yeah.
the little bit of time I have. So I tend to scarf it down. But yeah, so I think that, but it goes the same thing. You slow down and you breathe and you enjoy your food, and you're likely going to get the nutrients that you need. It's not like you're going to starve. And if you're hungry again, you can come back and eat some more or something. But
That's the logical point of view, yes.
yeah.
You're most likely, if you have a history of overeating or eating, then that you're not going to be coming from logic at first. So it's not as simple as understanding that logically. You have to actually work with the irrational part. So it would be like your child coming to you and saying, "Mommy, there's a monster under the bed." And you know there's not a monster under the bed, but you can't just say there's no monster under the bed, because that's not satisfying to them, right? In their mind, there is. So you have to play with it, right? Like, okay, well, let's get the monster fire extinguisher or whatever, right? Like you play the role and then you help them through it, because you meet them where they are and walk them out, right? So it's the same thing for this. We have to meet your brain where it is. And with overeating, it's almost always like 99.9% of the time lack of presence. Even when people say, I just like the food too much, and that's why I keep eating it, because I don't want the pleasure to stop, is the perception. Mm-hmm. It's actually the total opposite. If you were fully present, you wouldn't be able to keep eating, because you'd be too conscious of the body sensations, and the brain would be telling you to stop. Right now, for most of my clients, the brain's telling them to keep going. So it doesn't matter if the body's telling you to stop, because your brain's like, yeah, screw that. We're going to keep eating, because I want more. I have been chasing this pleasure experience for 10 years or whatever, and I still haven't gotten it. And so it'll just keep chasing it until you're like so freaking present that it's like, oh, that was really awesome. So overeating is 99.9% of the time just lack of presence. Now, I know you're busy. I'm a mom too. I get it. What I tell my young moms is just make sort of a pact with yourself that you won't ever put food in your mouth unless you can actually focus on that piece of food. So even if it's just one bite, so you like, whatever you're doing, you pause, you like, I'm going to take a bite of food right now, right? Just like super present. And then like you pick up the food, you take a bite, you like try to take a deep breath, and then maybe your child calls you from over here. So you just like 1 second, swallow, breathe, go attend to whatever you need to attend to, but like just make it a pact. Like, I'm not going to put food in my body unless I can actually consciously register that I'm eating it. Otherwise you will be continuously triggered to eat by your mind.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So really what it comes down to is just like extreme presence, even if it's just a moment.
Yeah.
But like we have a tendency to just like grab a handful of nuts as we walk by, throw them in the mouth, and then that does nothing for our brain. Doesn't even know what happened.
Yeah. Got it.
Just wasted calories, right? Wasted pleasure or joy or whatever.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is you won't be willing to waste an eating experience you won't be able to eat mindlessly, because you don't want to waste that opportunity to eat, because you'll appreciate that experience so much. You'll love your eating experience so much that you're like, I'll just wait like 10 minutes until I can sit down and enjoy it, because I'm not going to lose the opportunity. That's what will start to happen.
Yeah.
Just automatically.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And then the other trigger for eating that I notice a lot, especially because we almost always are coming from the world of dieting, is that we tie our food intake to our weight. And whenever we make our food decisions based on our weight, we're going to be in some kind of irrational or logical eating relationship because it's actually not accurate. Food doesn't equal weight gain. Excess calories don't even equal weight gain. The easiest way I can explain it is like when we consume too much food, it's just way more work for the body. If you keep making the body work so much harder, it's going to slow down all the processes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the body's stressed. Yeah.
Body's stressed. And so if you can make that shift in your brain, like it's not that I ate too much food that caused the weight gain. It's that I put too much effort onto my weight loss department.
That makes sense.
Gave them too much to do.
Yeah.
So all the employees slowed down. They all came, they're like, whoa, this is too much work. Like, I can't handle it, right? So if you can make that switch in your mind and you stop equating food to weight, you're going to feel a lot lighter already. Because you're not supposed to think in that way. Like we are as humans, anybody who's naturally thin, as they say, or has never struggled with weight does not think of food that way, right? It's just food is food. It's enjoyable. It's delicious. It's sometimes a means to an end when we're rushed. Like that's its purpose. And then weight is this other entity over here. And they really do need to be kept separate for, to be rational about your food decisions.
Okay.
Do you feel like you can make that distinction?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can. Yeah, I understand enough about the body to know that, to understand of how to logically understand how it's more about like taxing the system than about or I guess the calories per se. And I think that's why, when you choose foods that are easier for the body to digest, it's probably easier to lose weight that way too. But
honestly, less. I mean, here's the thing. I come from the world of psychology, not nutrition. So a nutritionist is probably going to kill me for saying this, but it's actually less about what you eat and more about the environment you're eating in.
Yeah.
So if you're stressed out and you put healthy food in a stressed out environment, your digestion, metabolism.
Oh yeah, you're not going to digest it anyway. Like I teach that, and I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So it's like what you eat matters eventually, but when you're in.
It matters if you can digest it because you're not
exactly.
But like if you're stressed out, it really doesn't matter. So we could be spending all the money on an organic diet, and it doesn't matter because you're not digesting it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. So it's more important to be thinking about how can I create an ideal environment for my body. So that means how can I make sure that when I'm consuming food, it's as relaxed and present as possible, like in realistic ways.
Yeah.
How can I create a relaxing environment for my body in other ways, right? So the types of movements we choose, are they really like stress-inducing, high-intensity, go, which is probably not the most ideal movement for most people who, unless they just don't have stress. But, this is why I recommend yoga as a movement tool.
Right. Because it balances.
Yeah, it balances.
You're speaking my language.
Okay, good. This is so great because we didn't know each other at all.
I know. I'm all about nervous system balance. That's my thing. So,
so hopefully what you can interpret, so that scale moving one way or the other, hopefully you can start to interpret that not as did I eat the way I needed to eat, but more did I do a good job creating like an awesome environment for my body.
Okay, cool. Now, I like that.
You did the diet. Which diet did you do?
Well, I've just been doing intermittent fasting. I started doing Noom just to hold myself accountable. I'm a women's health coach, so like I know all the right things, but like that doesn't mean that I don't have my own issues, right? So so I did that to kind of just help me like some accountability, and like started counting my calories through that. But I haven't been I did the calories for like 2 weeks maybe, and I was like, okay, I'm way overeating. I'm going to scale back. And then I just kind of started gradually going into intermittent fasting with like the way my day goes. And so I've been doing that. Okay. And then
so, I mean,
just trying to generally eat healthy.
I mean, obviously you do whatever you want, but the problem with relying on those, like I see weight loss programs, traditional weight loss programs, as programs to study, but not as rules. So
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
you learn about intermittent fasting, and then you ask your body what it thinks about that,
Yeah,
as opposed to making a decision about what you're going to do, basically what you're going to force your body to do,
right.
which is never going to work. So, there's not very many people that intermittent fasting is the natural way for them to eat.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
So I'm just going to say that
It's
if
just sometimes it's easy when you're like, I don't know, it just works. And I don't do it every day, but
easy for you,
it's
maybe mentally,
yeah,
but really hard on your body.
yeah, especially on women. I think it's easier for men, but
Well, like that's how my
the
husband
hormones.
eats normally. Like he does not
Yeah,
eat until probably 1 o'clock
yeah,
naturally.
yeah,
And if that's what's happening, the intermittent fasting, like all the people who didn't want to eat breakfast and were told their whole life they had to eat breakfast, intermittent
right.
fasting gave
It's
them
great for them.
the
Yeah,
excuse they've been looking for to eat the way
yeah,
that they want to eat. For the rest of us who do have hunger when we wake up and do have hunger prior to whatever the hour is, when your body, anytime your body signals something, I'm
mm-hmm.
hungry, I'm thirsty, I have to go to the bathroom, I'm tired, I need a break, any information your body gives you, if you don't listen to it, you're basically telling your body, screw you, I don't care what you want, we're doing it my way. And the more times we do that, the more disconnected we come from the body and the less the
Yeah,
body's going to communicate with us. So that's why it's like easy for you, but it's creating a longer term problem. You're creating
okay. I see
distrust.
that. I
Yeah.
see that. Okay.
Even like if your child was like, Mom, I'm hungry, and you're like, too bad, I don't feel like feeding you.
Yeah. How about like if you're intermittent fasting and you're not just ignoring it, like trying to stick till noon, but if you're like, okay, today I feel hungry at 9, I'm going to eat at 9. Today I feel hungry at noon, I'm going to eat at noon. And that's okay because you're like intuitively, because I think also like how often do I actually feel hungry? Like where I think on this, like doing intermittent fasting, I actually allow myself to feel hungry.
But that might be so once again, if we have overruled the body for any period of time, it communicates way less. So
Yeah.
it might not be that you're not hungry. It might be that your body's not signaling very loudly that it's hungry. So then you don't notice the signal until it's very,
Right.
very loud.
Right. And then that's when I binge eat.
And that's when you're going to binge, because how could you not, right? So
Right. Yeah.
like I use a number scale for fullness
Yeah.
and for hunger, and 1 to 10, 7 being optimal. So if you're looking at a hunger, right? So if you're at 7, that's like, I'm hungry. I'm not like, I'm going to eat you if you don't get out of my way hungry, but like, I'm
Yeah.
hungry.
Yeah.
Or like 5, I'm not that hungry, but I'm going to eat anyway. So once you start to get to 8, 9, and 10 on the hunger scale, it's like binge eating and overeating is sort of inevitable at that point. And if my clients come to me and they say, I binge ate, the first thing I ask them is, well, how hungry were you before you ate? And if they're at 8, 9, or 10, I'm like, then there's no conversation to have here. Of course you binge ate. So
Yeah.
you don't want to be that hungry. You don't want your body to rely on loud messages for you to listen. You want to listen in the subtleties, the little whispers, and be so connected to your body that like you're like, oh, almost anticipate its needs, right? Like you're usually hungry at 9, so you know what? I'm gonna plan to feed you at 9. Of course, I'm always gonna check in at 9 and see if you want the food, but I'm going to take care of you like you would a child, which is where they can rely on a schedule and know that you're always gonna be there for them. And so it's nice to have rhythm, always check in, but it's more likely your body's on a rhythm than not.
Oh yeah.
Very unlikely that you're hungry at 9 one day and 12 the next day, unless you ate so much food the night before that your body's like, give me a break.
Yeah, totally.
But usually it wants about the same every day.
Yeah.
What you eat usually changes. Like what you want to eat, your cravings tends to change. Right. But I would be shocked if that's how your body was. But once again, like all these questions rely on knowing how connected you are to your body. So like I have like assessment things that my clients do where I get like a snapshot of where they are, and it helps me understand more like, well, where are we starting? Because if we don't have a really deep connection to the body, then there's no point of even talking about those things yet, because we're not even coming from the right place. Like I can't trust your answers in a way. 'Cause they're not coming from your body, they're coming from you, right? Like, I need to talk to your body, not you.
Right.
Like, I want to move you aside and be like, okay, Tara's body, tell me what you want and need. We're going to shut her down for a second. And then, so that's my job. I'm the body.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
like, no,
Perfect.
that's not what your body wants.
Okay. Got it.
So, like, I'm here for your body. If I'm here for your body's going to be there for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of my goal with my clients. I'm there so that you feel your body feels really taken care of, and it doesn't feel stressed out. It doesn't feel like it's going to be starved. It doesn't feel like it's going to be robbed of joy. It doesn't feel like it's going to be robbed of pleasure. Like, it feels really safe and secure and taken care of and loved, and not, that unconditional love where I love you more when you look this way, but not when you look that way, or I'll take away food when you do something I don't like. Like, just that whole manipulative game has to go.
Yeah. Okay.
And decisions based on your intellect have to go. Right?
Okay.
That's overwhelming your body's intuition of telling you what it wants.
Okay.
And most likely on Noom, that's what I was going to say earlier. So what happens when people go on a diet, if it's something that's moving them towards a way of eating that they actually want, like, you want to not want sugar that much. So when you do something that has you not eat sugar as much, at first the body can't decipher between, oh, this is real, like, she doesn't want sugar that much anymore, or she's faking it and she's just not eating it when she wants it. So it doesn't know.
Yeah.
Your brain knows, your body doesn't. And so at first what happens is you're doing the things that you and your future see yourself doing. Like, I see myself not binging on sugar. And so the body starts to feel amazing. Like, yes, that's great. And it rewards you with weight loss. And it's like, we're on track. We're doing good. We're feeling great. We're checking off all the boxes. And then it finds out that it was all a lie. It was not real at all. She was using discipline and willpower, and it was never going to last. And that's when it gets pretty pissed. And that's when you see a lot of weight gain. And when things worked and then all of a sudden they don't work, a bit of rebellion starts to happen, because the body's like, you played me and I don't like that.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
You want to get there on your